Hey everyone, this is Blackhawk SC and welcome back to this channel. In this video, I'll give you my current opinion and builds for the Rifleman IIC. This is the first month that the Rifleman IIC has been available, and when there's some major issue with the chassis during its release, PGI will fix the mechs in the next patch. This has happened before on several occasions. For example, the Sunspider's side torsos were too large at the time of the release, but was fixed a month later. The Rifleman IIC has a gigantic CT, which I predict will be patched next month. So this review and guide will be in the context of the current hitbox situation, and I may do another video next month with the fixed hitboxes. By the way, thanks to a longtime viewer who donated the Rifleman IIC pack, as well as discussed the build and playstyle options for the chassis. It's always important for me to hear how others have experienced the chassis, because everyone plays differently. The pros of the Rifleman is that it's a clan battle mech with decent hardpoint locations. These are the most powerful type of mechs in the game today, because it gives you access to clan tech, while retaining the flexibility of a battle mech. Most of its weapons are arm-mounted, which are mid-torso level and a little bit below the cockpit. They're not too high, but far from being low. The hardpoint count is also pretty generous, which gives you plenty of viable, if not good weapon combinations per chassis. The glaring issue at the moment is the giant CT hitbox. It's absolutely massive, and given that it's a 65-tonner, it doesn't have that much armor to begin with. I posted the hitboxes on Outreach, and I'll link it in the description. 2 to 3 alphas to a mech and it's dead, even if those shots weren't very well placed. Despite its good hardpoint locations, the CT severely restricts the type of engagements it can be in. Torso twisting simply gives them your arms, which houses all of your weapons, so the number of times you can twist is also limited. However, losing an arm or armor on the arms is better than being dead, so you want to twist shots until you've lost all the armor on the arms. Overall, I feel like this chassis can be very good if the hitboxes were adjusted, like a 15 to 20% reduction to the size of the CT. But for now, because of how carefully you need to play, your damage output can be limited, especially if your team is passive and doesn't create openings for you. A second problem, but I think a lesser one, is the engine cap on some variants. But if you speed tweak the chassis, you shouldn't be left behind in a NASCAR. In this video, we're going to look at the base variant specifically. This has a total of 7 energy hardpoints and a very unique HSL +2 quirk for the large pulse laser. This means that you can fire 4 clan large pulse lasers at a time without ghost heat. This is pretty cool, but when you really think about it, is it really practical in the 2019 meta? 2 years ago this would have been amazing to play, but now with the solo queue engagements occurring only briefly at LPL's optimal range, I feel that this isn't as useful as it could have been. You could try to play range, but you'll probably have lights coming after you since you're pretty easy to kill and slow target. What else can you do? Well, there's the pulse boat option. This is pretty suitable for the solo queue NASCAR fest, and the range quirk helps when the target is slightly beyond the MPL optimal. The JJ can also come in handy, but the Ebon Jack can do a similar build and it's much faster while giving up only 1 heatsink. Even with speed tweak, the 235 engine will only go as fast as an executioner without mask. It's a viable option, but I'm not convinced I'd run this over the Ebon Jack version. Let's look at laser vomit, but not any boring old laser vomit, but the HSL enhanced laser vomit. We're not going to use 4 LPLs, but instead 3 plus 4 ERMLs. We're going to use the engine cap to our advantage and pack in more heavier lasers for a bigger alpha and better heat efficiency than standard laser vomit. The LPLs are more heat efficient than either the ERMLs or heavy larges, with the only limitation being weight, which we have on this mech, compared with the standard Ebon Jack laser vomit. This build is more fragile, but its bigger alpha means that it has to peak less. The JJs can also be used to mess up people's aim once in a while. Overall, we can play this like a more conservative Ebon Jaguar or Hellbringer. You don't have the speed to reposition quickly, so you can't go as far off on your own as these other faster mechs, so you need to stay fairly close to your team. You want to peek hills instead of corners when possible. It's also super risky to take the first peek around corners, so it's important to control your eagerness to engage with this mech. Normally what I want to do is to make peeks where there is a good chance no one's looking your way. Or if you know there's someone looking your way, let your friendlies tank the initial shot. When you're in a NASCAR situation, fire the 3 LPLs only and ignore the ER mediums until you've cooled down enough. The 3 LPLs have about the same firepower as 6 MPLs while generating 1.5 points more heat per shot, so they're great for sustained DPS. I also have a heat neutral 2 LPL group. At the end of the NASCAR games, you'll probably be using the ERMLs infrequently as the match becomes more brawly and you can't afford to overheat or shut down. For skills, we're going to maximize the offensive capabilities of this mech. making sure to get all heat gen and duration nodes in firepower and cool run and operations. The duration nodes are very important in this chassis because often you'll be twisting before your burn is over. It's best to avoid damage and give up a portion of your alpha. We're going to speed tweak the mech instead of putting nodes in durability because I think the best defense for this mech is just not to get shot at all. Maybe when they fix the hitboxes I can play more aggressively and put more nodes in durability. Alright, let's take this into a game. In this match we're on Canyon Network. Canyon Network in the upper tier solo queue right now is often NASCAR. Almost always NASCAR. So we'll take a look at how this more ranged build performs in a kind of a NASCAR scenario. If I'm in a range mech though, sometimes you get these early ranged opportunities by shooting over at Echo 4 where the enemy spawns. So I like to do that in the beginning if I'm able to. I somehow got a lucky backshot on the Locust. So you can see kind of the rotation starting to happen. I don't want to be the first mech to kind of push out over there. Just playing fairly safely behind friendlies. It's a nice UAV. That Vapor Eagle 1 builds are often left stacked. So for example, this guy's running a pretty popular build, which is dual Gauss and some medium lasers. And so since we know that it's left stack, we go and take out the left torso. I have mentioned this problem before on my channel. The left stack builds are more difficult to work with in a NASCAR scenario. It requires good positioning and defensive skills to avoid having to shield with your weapons side. I try to warn you guys on my channel about these risks when and if I feature them, but definitely you can do well with them. As you can see that last shot on that catapult, I wasn't fully exposed to get all of my lasers exposed. And that's something that you can do and you probably should be doing. If you're making kind of a dangerous poke, you're not really sure how many enemies are on the opposite side, then you just might want to expose only with what you're comfortable with. And if your weapons hit terrain, then so be it. So if you went back a couple of seconds, you might have seen my poke on that Marauder. That was a little bit risky, but thankfully he didn't do much to me at that time. So that if you're playing kind of conservatively, you maybe would not take that shot. But I had some armor to give, and I thought I could be relatively safe, so I took that shot. But just be careful of those kind of pokes. I'm also lucky here not to get shot by that Fafnir, that dual heavy Gauss Fafnir. That would have been really bad. So this is kind of mid to end match, starting kind of like the end of the match now. We're running hot, so we're going to start relying on the large pulses for the majority of the rest of the match. So we also noticed that the Huntsman's almost gone. See, this was also a very dangerous situation with the Fafnir also looking at me, but fortunately for me, my teammates were there to sort of jump ahead of me. So we're able to get a series of kills here on the Fafnir, Nightjar, and the Huntsman. So if you notice, we finished the Huntsman first before we took out the Fafnir because the Huntsman we knew that it was pretty cored. And you can see there's not much use of the ERMLs for the last minute or so because we're trying to keep cool and not overheat. And just kill this last guy. I was definitely lucky on some of these scenarios, but in general you should be able to see how I'm positioning relative to my team. If you're a super aggressive player, then this chassis is not going to be for you right now, and you might want to wait for a hitbox fix before buying it. Even as it is currently, it can still do well as long as your teammate is aggressive for you. Okay guys, I hope you found this video to be informative and do subscribe for more mech reviews like this, and I'll see you next time.